All right, so we're going to continue our 2.5 stuff, but I have one more thing to kind of add to this, to our 2.5, and it's interval notation. So there is a video that I would like you to watch and answer the questions on in Canvas. I can even show you. Oh, I got it out of Canvas. Let me pull it up quick. I will show you what I'm talking about. So in Canvas, if you click on modules and scroll all the way to the bottom, interval notation is the video that I would like you to watch and answer the questions on. But the main things that I need you to know about interval notation are really two things. So the first thing is if I'm using parentheses, let's try over here. If I'm using parentheses, that means that that number is not included. So think about this like our open dots, right? My open dots means that I'm not including that number in my solution set. The other thing that I'm going to pay attention to is brackets. So brackets tell me that my number is included. Think of this like our closed dots. So if I was going to do an example of this, I may have the inequality, let's look at like -2 is less than x is less than or equal to 7. So my solution set is going to be between the numbers of -2 and 7. I'm just going to pay attention to which numbers I'm including and which ones I'm not. So my minimum here is a -2. I'm not going to include -2 in my solution set because it's -2 is less than x. So I'm going to put a parentheses there, a comma to separate them. My maximum is 7. 7 in relation to x is less than or equal to, so I am including 7, which means that I put a bracket around 7. This essentially is just an easier, quicker way of displaying my solution that's not a graph, right? So normally we look at this, so in this example, right, number 1, I have a graph, and I want you to write an inequality associated with the graph. And a lot of times what I'll have you do is you'll solve an inequality and then graph your solution. This over here is like I'm graphing it. It's just a much quicker and easier way of doing that. Let me get rid of that line. It's a much quicker and easier way of doing that. So this will say the same thing as a graph does, just in a little bit more succinct way. So let's do a couple examples. When you look at this worksheet, the first exercises 1 through 3 is just what we have been doing, right? So I'm going to look at this graph. My minimum is at -4. My maximum's at 1. They both have open dots, so that means I'm going to be using less than signs in between. So I've got my minimum, right, is less than my variable, is less than my maximum. That's how I set up AND statements. And you're going to do a similar thing down here. So you're going to read the words and write the inequality that the sentence is talking about. It may be helpful for you to pull out your notes that we've been doing before to refer back to, because a lot of this is just deciphering the words and what they all mean. So like if we look at, this one is the one, number 4, people have kind of struggled with today. So a number t is less than 5 and greater than 3. So if I were just to write this as I read it, I would have t is less than 5. Oops. t is less than 5, and t is greater than 3. So when I look at this, it's an and statement, so that means that I can have one long inequality. That means that I need to have my minimum on one side. So my minimum is going to be on my left-hand side. My variable is t. My maximum is going to be on my right-hand side. Well, I already know that t is less than 5, right? And I also know, in this case, t is greater than 3, so my alligator eats the bigger number, right? That means that 3 is less than t. So the way that I'm going to write this is that 3 is less than t is less than 5. So you'll go ahead and complete the other ones. And then the back side is what I wanted to point out to you. Let me get rid of this from earlier. Oops. Okay. So numbers 8 through 13 are going to ask you to solve, and then it wants you to write your solution in interval notation, which is what we talked about at the beginning. So here's what I'm going to tell you. These three, 8 through 10, do that. Solve and interval notation. 11 through 13 down here, these I want you to just solve. And the reason why is because the way that we do interval notation with or statements is really weird, and we're not going to talk about it, at least yet. And so I want you to just focus on solving the or statements, but the ones up here, you're going to solve and do an interval notation. So let's do one together. I've got 3 is less than x plus 4 is less than or equal to 10. My whole goal is to get x by itself, right? So I'm going to subtract 4 from all of my sides, not just from one side, from all parts of it. 3 minus 4 is negative 1. Negative 1 is less than x is less than or equal to 6, right? 10 minus 4 is 6. That's my solution. Now I'm going to write it in interval notation. So my minimum is negative 1. My maximum is 6. I need to figure out whether it needs a parentheses or a bracket. So my first one, I've got negative 1 is less than x. I'm going to use a parentheses on the left-hand side. Ugh. Parentheses on the left-hand side. There we go. I am including 6. X is less than or equal to 6. So a bracket's going to go over here. That's it. I'm done. I finished that one. Let's do one or one together also. So or statements, I'm solving them two separate ways, right? So I've got h plus 7 is less than 5. I'm going to subtract 7 from both sides. Leaves me with h is less than negative 2 over here. I'm going to do the same thing over here. Divide both sides by negative 9 though. So then I'm left with h. I divided by a negative number, so my sign flips. H is greater than 5. So my solutions then are h is less than negative 2 or h is greater than 5. So if I were to graph this, it would look like this. I would have a negative 2 here. I could have my 5 up here. I would have an open dot on negative 2, open dot on 5, arrows pointing in opposite directions. Okay, that's all I have to do for that. Like I said, you don't have to do that in interval notation because it's weird, and we're not gonna look at that quite yet. So all that's left for you to do on this one is to finish up all of the other problems on your own.